An anti-corruption advocacy group, SERAP, has threatened to sue governors who refuse to publicly declare their assets, urging them to also emulate Seyi Makinde, the governor of Oyo State. And also, the Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum have refused to attend General Abdul Salam Abubakar's peace meeting due to the same categorization as Miyetti Allah. Well, this is Plus Politics, and I am Maryann Okon. An anti-corruption advocacy group, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has urged governors to emulate Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde to publicly declare their assets. Now, they described Makinde as a good example. SERAP said it was important for the 35 other governors to replicate his actions because Nigerians ought to know the worth of their governors. SERAP also stated that if the governors refuse to take its advice to make their assets declaration open to the public, it would take legal action against them. And joining us in the studio to discuss this, I have Adetokunbo Mumuni. He's the Executive Director, SERAP. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Mumuni.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right. I also have Francis Chilaka. He's a political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Chilaka.
Thank you very much, Maryann.
So, I have to start with you, Mr. Mumuni, because you are representing SERAP. Now, for Makinde, lots of people have applauded, what he has done, being that he's a public servant and he's somewhat accountable to us, the public. But the question is, why does SERAP have to tell other governors to emulate him if this is statutory for any public office holder, especially governors and presidents or vice presidents? Why should SERAP be telling them what to do?
Thank you very much. The point that must be made is that we are in a democracy. In a democracy, the people decide they must and should know. In a democracy, you cannot hide under a finger. What you must do must tend towards accountability and transparency. Mm-hmm. It is not enough that you make a declaration in the asset form, submit to the Code of Conduct Bureau. That is not enough. Because those that created the Code of Conduct and that asset declaration matter in the Constitution, they wanted Nigerians to interrogate what you declare. You see, we have been used to people making anticipatory declaration. So the thing about that anticipatory declaration is that they won't be what they say they are worth. And once they are now in government, they now start doing subterfuge to acquire them, albeit illegally. So what we want to happen, and which we think goes towards accountability and transparency, is that the declaration will be made, Nigerians will interrogate what you have declared. For instance, if you say, this is my property, I have this property at number 4 Oyinjola Street, Victoria Island. Now, we now have the address, you know what we know, you have told us what it was worth. We will now go, we'll send people there to confirm whether indeed, if it is true, then the value will know. So those are the various interrogatory process that is expected of us as citizens. And that is why we say what Makinde has done is a call on other public officials to do the same. If they are not doing the same because they think there is a gap in the law and what is happening, we want to say that when you are a public officer, you are no longer a private person. And
that is questionable in so many ways. No. I'm just, that is what the law should say, I'm guessing. Yes. Because the moment you're out there, you cannot ask for some sort of privacy.
Yes.
Your information has to be out there. But we see the opposite play out in Nigeria, because they say, oh, well.
As a matter of fact, when we asked the Code of Conduct to give us what governors had declared in the past, it was the Code of Conduct Bureau that was trying to offer explanation for those that made declaration before them. They said if they give it to us, that will amount to an infringement on their privacy. We are in court in respect of that.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll come back to you on the court issue. Francis, you are a citizen of the country. You obviously have a governor who represents you, and of course we have the president, who's the overall #1 guy. And there have been many people who've questioned Mr. President's declaration. Now, we also realized that on the 28th of May, the president and the vice president got their asset declaration forms 24 hours before the deadline. And these are supposed to be our pace setters, but it took a while for them to get this done. Why, again, I'm asking the same question. If it is a statutory function, you must do this as a public office holder, and it is part of your duty. Why do you have to wait for your citizens to remind you to declare your assets? Meanwhile, there are certain persons who are still in court today because this same federal government has said that these people did not publicly declare their assets, or they did not declare their assets properly. For example, the former Senate president was in court several times in front of the CCB, accused of, leaving some things out. We know it's a democracy, but why do we have to wait for the public or civil societies like SERAP to call these people to do their job or something that they need to do?
Well, the problem starts with the fact that Nigerians have not come up to the level where they begin to question their leaders. Mm-hmm. We have always had this love for our leaders. We cover them up. Oh, is it not just for 4 years, he will be gone and all of that. And then even when they do this declaration, nobody goes to investigate. Nobody. So sometimes when you ask them to do the declaration, they just do it for doing sake. Mm. And then a lot of them feel, we have a problem, like I keep saying, we have a problem with the Constitution. When they make these declarations, who follows them up? I don't need to tell a public office holder to declare his or her assets. Mm-hmm. But it's just because of the corruption in the system. Because sometimes somebody is a governor, he probably doesn't have a car, or he has just one car, one house. Now, if he declares that, when he's leaving office, who goes to check what he has gotten? Mm. So I think that is why a lot of people don't really bother themselves about, insisting that they should declare, because whether they declare or they don't declare, they still steal from the people.
But is that not a problem? And I'm going to come back to Mr. Mumuni because he's representing SERAP. But is that not a problem on our part as followers of any government or as citizens? There is such a thing that has been coined as the office of the citizen of the Federal Republic. If we do not bother, we say, oh, the law says you should do this. But if we do not bother to follow up with these things that we demand for at the beginning, is that not a fault on our part? Because if they know, like you have said, the politicians know that there is no follow-up and nobody's checking to find out anything, of course, they would just do it for doing sake.
The Code of Conduct Bureau itself is set up in such a way that it protects these politicians. It is not my duty, neither the duty of SERAP, to go after these people. It is the duty of the Code of Conduct Bureau. They are the ones who should actually make it public to Nigerians. We don't need to beg them. It is also because of the corruption in that system. Mm. It's only when the government in power feels, oh, you become a threat, like they did with the former Senate president, like they did with former CJN. So, and then even when they do that, they still do not give you, the citizens, they still do not publish publicly what was declared until it becomes an issue. So, Freedom of Information Bill, where does it come in? That's the question we should be asking. So as a matter of fact, what should really play out is that when I declare my asset as a public figure, mm-hmm. or as a public servant, mm-hmm. it is not the duty of any NGO or any group to begin to ask. It should be in the purview of Nigerians. People should have access to it. So the Code of Conduct Bureau is not doing what they're empowered to do. So the whole idea of saying, oh, Mr. President has declared his asset, the Vice President has declared his asset, to who? To just one small office or to Nigerians? So this whole thing should be put in the public. It is not for anybody to ask them to put it in public. They have done their own bit. It is now the duty of those who have collected it to put it in the public for people to assess it.
Okay, Mr. Mumuni, you are a lawyer by profession, and I'm trying to understand, because we've been rolling what the Code of Conduct Bureau asks of public servants. We've been rolling them, and we took this from the handle of SERAP, and we've been scrolling it on the screen. But if the average Nigerian is not necessarily interested in all of these things, and even the average Nigerian who's learned enough to know these things is not even concerned in the first instance, why are we here?
You see, those who introduced the idea of asset declaration, the founding fathers of the Nigerian Constitution, think in a democracy we must have probity, we must have accountability, so that there will be good governance. That being so, it is no longer the business of Nigerians to start asking you to declare it. It is a duty that is imposed on you. You don't leave yourself like a sitting dog.
But I'm asking this is for the CCB now.
Yes.
How many Nigerians know what the CCB's duty is in the first instance, and that we should be on their case, not necessarily on the case of the politicians, we should be on the case of the CCB to make public those assets that have been privately declared to them?
That is the essence of what we asked the CCB to do. And the CCB was even making an excuse for those people. It says if it meets the demand of SERAP, it will amount to infringement on the privacy.
But what does the law say about this infringement?
Let me tell you. The law says they are public officers. Once the law says they are public officers, they are not entitled to any privacy in matters which the law says must be with the CCB. Now, this is the document, the declaration has been made to the CCB. We now say the CCB should make it available.
Through the FOI?
Yes. And FOI is a law properly made by the legislature of Nigeria. And we have asked under Freedom of Information Act. It is the CCB that is trying to make a case for this set of public officers.
So you're in court against
yes.
who? The CCB?
The CCB.
I see.
We have queried that angle of this, saying it will amount to private infringement of the privacy of this public officer.
No, but I think SERAP should do more. I like to throw jabs wherever it should be.
Yes.
Your job now should be to educate Nigerians.
But is that really the job of SERAP?
No, let me finish.
Because we have a national orientation
agency.
Please
leave that body alone.
But they have a duty, don't they? So if we are leaving a civil society organization to play the role of a government organization whose duty is to educate Nigerians on those things that we don't necessarily have knowledge of, why should SERAP, who is just trying to help us, take on that responsibility?
They are trying to help us. Let them help us from the beginning. Don't help us halfway. Don't help Nigerians halfway. What they're doing is doing halfway. A lot of Nigerians, when you're talking about asset declaration, they don't even understand what you're saying. That's the point I'm trying to make. But when people are conscientized, when people are well educated, when people know their rights, like I said here the last time, voters' education should start now. People should begin to be educated on their rights, on their civic responsibility.
It should be an everyday thing.
Yeah, so right now, what I would want to start doing is move out, start educating people. What do you mean by this? What do you want to achieve with this? Because when people read it on paper and they're like, oh, this one, they've come again. They're looking for settlement. They want to be recognized. But people need to understand where you're coming from. People need to understand that what you're doing is for people to be aware of their rights. Most Nigerians don't know their rights.
And where does that leave the NOA? Because I'm not going to let this go. They are an orientation agency of government it is their number one duty to educate us.
Receiving public.
Where does that leave them?
Receiving public money for doing nothing.
Well, when we talk about National Orientation Agency, it's one body that, honestly speaking, I still don't know what they do. I'll say that. I've talked about it severally.
They do what their name says they do.
I've talked about it severally. There are a lot of things, like when laws are passed by the National Assembly, and the president assents to it, it is the job of National Orientation Agency to take it to the people.
Exactly.
But they don't do that. And that is why you find out that you're driving on a one-way, you are probably new in the town, you don't understand what is going on, your car is clamped. So we have this, in every state, you have Office of the National Orientation Agency.
In every local government.
Every local government. So I think that the state governors should take up the responsibility themselves. If the federal is not doing what they should do, the state governors and the local government chairmen should take over from where they stop. This whole idea of people collecting salary at the end of the month, not doing anything, is part of the corruption that this government should fight.
So going forward now, because we need to wrap up, I hear that we don't have time. Makinde has decided that he's going to toe the line of a good public servant and do the needful. He has declared his assets. Nobody is going to check when he's leaving office. I mean, Serap, I'm hoping that you have marked your territory. You're going to check when he leaves. But for other governors who don't feel the need to do that, except for the fact that you guys are crying foul, is SERAP going to be going to every of the states to say to the people of the state, because not necessarily the governors, ask your governors to declare their assets, ask them to be accountable? Can you really do that?
No. The thing is already in the public domain.
That's what you think?
No. What we said is that other governors should emulate Makinde. Now, they want to tell us... Is that really
enough? Emulating?
No.
Is that not supposed to be us making a demand that they do it, instead of making it look like it's optional for them?
No. What we have said is, the Constitution says, declare your assets. But we want you to publish it. That is what Makinde has done. That is different from what the president or the vice president or Yaradua in 2007 did. What we said is, make it available to members of the public. That is what Makinde has done.
But can I ask you a question?
We need to go quickly.
I know, if they make it public,
yes,
and you don't go to verify it, of what use is it?
No. Make it public so that, you see, the Freedom of Information Act does not even say when you ask for such information, you should tell them what you want it for. You say you just want to be enlightened. That's enough. Because the principle in the Freedom of Information Act does not say you have to disclose why you want.
So you can go ahead and do whatever you want with that information. All right, gentlemen, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much, Mr. Adetokunbo Mumuni, Executive Director, SERAP, for joining us today, and Francis Chilaka, Political Analyst. Thank you for joining us. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be speaking on the Southern and Middle Belts Leaders Forum and their refusal to be categorized with the Miyetti Allah. Stay with us.